Hey everybody. I guess I've been on live more than I normally am, just because obviously lockdown and all that good stuff that we've been going through, and so I've just been enjoying being able to jump on here and being able to do research and stuff like that, and which is what I enjoy the most is research and getting involved and just looking up stuff and enjoying that part of my world. So anyways, there's just some thoughts. I woke up this morning and I was came into my office and I had done some meditation, and then it hit me to pull up my journal. And so this is how it works for me. I literally have these thoughts, and some people say that I channel that, or that's my spirit guides, and that's what I tend to believe, or my inner voice, whatever you want to refer to it as. And I literally just got the pull up your journal. So I pulled up my journal and I just opened it up. And the first thing, I had this note in here, and it's weird because I'll just write things down. I don't know if you guys do this, but I'll just write things down, and then I'll forget about them. And then later on, a month, week, 2 years later, whatever, I'll pull it up. Well, I wrote down this journal entry, and it says Osiris Philae. And I wrote it down, and I put 28 candles, 5 Ankhs, and 10 Serpent heads. So of course, I have to jump into this stuff and start looking at it. So I literally go into this research, just because you can't just sit there and have something like that pop up. I obviously wrote it down there for a reason. And so I just wanted to jump in and, look at what that reason was. So I'm going to share my screen here really quick. And as you can see the this is called the Osiris Fillet, and I had to actually look up the pronunciation of that because I was like, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But anyways, there's 28 candles here, which I found super interesting, and then there is 5 Ankhs, and then there is 10 serpent heads. So that makes you wonder, and I've done a lot of research on the Kundalini and activating the light body and all that, and the spiritual alchemy and all that good stuff. And so it made me start to think, okay, so what does this mean symbolically? And then how can it apply in current times, like with what's going on? So first of all, let's just pull some things up. I just thought this was interesting. I'm by no means a numerologist. So for those of you who are out there and you're just like, to crucify me because of my numerology understanding, I have to look this up. So, but I was just kind of looking at this, and then I put up here 28 candles. So 2 plus 8, and then equals 10, and then 1 plus 0 equals 1. So oneness, right? And it goes back to the one, that's you going within yourself, the one person, everything starts with you, that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because we'll come back to this image here in a second, but I found this very interesting because if you want to pull up the Ankh, there's 5 Ankhs, and what is 5 in numerology? It's changing, freedom-loving, being adaptable, daring. Things are forever changing, that kind of stuff. So, but interesting enough, the Ankh stands for life or enduring life, and so I found that super interesting. And then this is pronounced Jed, and I had to look up that pronunciation as well. I haven't quite gotten to that yet, but I will get to that here in a second. So interestingly enough, if you were to look at this story, the story is Set, Osiris's brother, cut him into 14 pieces. So 14. If 1 plus 4 equals 5, going back to 5, I thought that was very interesting. And so the Ankh is also considered in some cases a cross, so the Jesus died on the cross, and interesting enough, that kind of stuff. So changing, freedom, adaptability, and daring. So let's look at our current life right now. We're in most areas, we're in lockdown or a safer stay at home, that kind of stuff. And so we're going through this, we're not used to doing this kind of stuff. I have some friends that are introverts, and they're like, I'm loving this, all that kind of stuff. But wherever you're at, it doesn't really matter. You're going through a change within yourself. You're having to spend a lot of time with yourself, or a lot of time with the closest people around you, and there's a change. most people I've talked to, they're going through and thinking about a lot of stuff, but they definitely agree with the fact that we're all going through some kind of change right now. So, interestingly enough, if we go into that, we're looking at this. This is death, we know, in esoterics is not the end. It is only the beginning. And so I found that super interesting too, because what's more interesting is these things right here, 10 serpent heads. Well, what is that? So I had to look that up because I just looked at that and I wrote it down. So I found this symbol with the Ankh, and this is what is called Jed, and I'll get into that in a second. And this is one of those serpent heads that you saw on that image right here. And then going on, I looked here and I also saw Jed with two. This is called the Jed pillar, and so we'll get into that in a second as well. But I found this super interesting because this is that serpent head. Well, it's called the Was Scepter, and so it gives you control over the force of chaos. Interesting. So our life, in a sense, is chaos, right? We're constantly trying to figure things out. And then within us is this spine, human spine, which is basically, some people will call the Kundalini. It is also where the chakras, the energy system or the chakra system lies. And so through the chakra, what are the chakras about? They're about lessons. They're about each time you learn whatever lesson is you need to learn, for what those chakras are associated with, those chakras start to open up, and then you start to illuminate your body. And illuminate means you're facing more of the truth within yourself, and so that just means you're going deeper within yourself. Just found that super interesting. So what is the serpent? Most people paint the serpent, at least in Western society, they paint the serpent as something evil. And so that's because we've been taught that Lucifer was the morning sun or the rising sun, and one of the brightest stars in the sky or in the heavens. And then that he went against God, and then he was cast down, and he was called. And then he was called Satan, which means enemy. Well, the interesting part is that Lucifer was a seraphim, and so seraphim stands for seraph stands for serpent. So just thought that was super interesting. So what is the serpent energy all about? Well, I'm sure you guys have seen the videos of the snake charmer with the flute, and he starts to calm the snake, and the snake starts randomly and calmly kind of going up and relaxing and standing straight up. Well, very similar to what happens with you in your Kundalini, or the energy of what is going to save you, so to speak, or give you empowerment or new life. So if we go back to these 10 was scepters or serpents are sitting here, interestingly enough. And so if you take 10 again, 1 plus 0 equals what? 1. So it goes back to 1. And it's very interesting because if you really look at I did a live feed with Daniela last night, and we were talking about, and I was showing the Universal Lattice Mind by Alex Gray. And so if you look at that, we become this pillar of light. And so 1, in other words, there's no chakras, there's no nothing, you're just one pillar of light, and you are literally attached to, or in flow, or in connection with all that is, consciousness, so to speak. And so right now, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world. There is all the imagery you see on social media. There's all this crazy stuff about, people getting angry, the dualities or the polarities that are happening, that kind of stuff. There's a tremendous amount going on. And that's just really completely fascinating when you look at it's sad in a sense, but it's also fascinating because you can look at how this is what's unfolding here. The interesting part is, so Isis goes, and after Set kills his brother, Isis goes to Atum, one of the creator gods, the original creator god, and asks for help, and then revives her husband long enough so she can conceive her child. And so inner child is Horus. The child between the two of them is Horus. Horus, it becomes an immaculate conception. And so why? Because technically, Osiris is revived, but only long enough to conceive, and then he's no longer there as well. So that's interesting because there's another child. Actually, there's several of them. There's another image of throughout history of, but the most famous one is Jesus, who's immaculate conception. But the thing you have to understand about modern day Christianity is a lot of their stories come from Sumeria and Egypt. It doesn't make those stories bad, but you have to understand that the Bible was canonized over well over 1,000 years, 3 times, and they took these stories that were told over and over and over again and said, these are the books. So some would say it's about controlling, and some people would be about eliminating, all that kind of stuff. And right now for this talk, I'm not going to get into that conversation. I really just wanted to get into what is happening within all of us and what this story can tell us. And what this story is telling us is that through facing yourself, the Ankh is also about vibration or frequency. And the other interesting part about the Ankh is if you'll look right here and you'll see 8 stands for infinity. So infinity, an 8 would have, it would be like the Ankh is like half of an 8, right? So this is really like the cross is like the perfect man or the human. And so when they go into infinity, then they start to, this is the lower part or the lower chakras, so to speak. And when they go into flow and become a pillar of light, they become that Taurus, so to speak, where it's constant flowing, and constant energy flowing back and forth. And there is no like blocks to prevent that energy from going and doing what it needs to infinity, so to speak. So what ends up happening? Set kills his brother. His wife, Isis, revives him. They give birth to a new child. So this is really not the ending. This is a rebirthing. And what are we going through right now? The death of the old into the new. So some would say, well, no, we're going through the coronavirus and all that other kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is that through what we're going through right now, there's a rebirthing in all of you, because I'm sure that there's things in you that you're looking at and you're starting to look at and you're starting to say, I want to change this. I want to do things differently than I have been doing. And so, and through that, that's what's called a rebirthing. As you're changing things, you are rebirthing yourself. So now this image right here in the middle, is called Jed. And I got a better image of it right here. There's also this Jed, right? Some would say we're bringing 2 into 1. That's a whole other story. But here's kind of a better image of it. Well, what does Jed stand for? It stands for stability and strength. So through what we're going through right now, we are learning stability and strength. So there's more than just the coronavirus going on. Our economy looks like on the face of it, it's collapsing. There's a whole bunch of other things going on. But what this is telling us, that we have to go within ourselves, that the Savior is within us, that the energy is within us to find happiness, to find completion, to find stability, everything else. And so in this case, Osiris had to die in order to find peace or find stability within his life. So then let's go on. Let's look at this. This looks kind of interesting because this is what I'm going to pronounce this caduceus. I can never pronounce this damn word. And basically, it's it's Hermes' scepter, and it's very similar to what Hermes was also the Egyptian god Thoth. So, but it's very similar to this scepter, right? Which also Atum actually carries, and Set carries as well. And so, remember what I said. This is what it is: stability or control over the force of chaos. So why? So as you illuminate yourself, you literally learn the lessons, and then you realize that you have dominion over this chaos. You have dominion over this life. You are empowered within yourself. So it has tremendous amount of lessons here. This is Osiris. And so But like, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second, because let's jump into um, something else. I want to just read this passage. As I was going through something, I just found this very interesting. I was Google searching and something popped up. And like I said, with any of this kind of stuff, it doesn't make, I'm definitely not an expert, any of this kind of stuff. I just research and read through things just like you guys do. And it just makes me go, it makes me ponder just for a second and look at it. But I just want to read this interesting, because I thought this was a kind of an interesting blog. And it's about Cain and Abel in the Bible, the story of Cain and Abel in the Bible. And says, as we now focus on our new esoteric lens into view, let us see what these infamous brothers were truly about. In this new light, it becomes increasingly obvious concerning the parallelisms with the Egyptians' creation myth and strong similarities between the first main characters mentioned in Genesis. It will become apparently that the biblical brothers known as Cain and Abel are none other than the Egyptian brothers Osiris and Set, or some people call him Seth, respectively. Besides the blatant resemblance of murder by jealousy, in the case of the Gnostic story, the Gnostic Gospels, it is jealousy over Abel's twin sister and wife. Also, Isis was Osiris's wife and sister as well. That causes Cain or Set to slay Abel, Osiris, rather than the biblically presumed case of performing a more appealing sacrifice to God, as the Bible would have us believe. Similarly, we find Set's jealousy over Osiris's rulership of a plot of land that is much larger and lusher than the desert that Seth is given to lord over. So, in other words, it's interesting. So, in this particular person's research, they feel that Cain and Abel are the same as Osiris and Set, which there's a lot of parallels. So it's definitely something to take into consideration. It is also interesting to note that Set's wife and sister was also very fond of Osiris, and together they had an illegitimate child, Anubis. This certainly may have also contributed to the mythical final act of murder. Does the story reinforce positive message, or are these two siblings just allegories veiling deeper truths? It would appear the latter is so. For the hidden wisdom that is being revealed here is as follows: symbolic representation of Set cutting Osiris up into 14 pieces and scattering them about the land is actually Set taking on responsibility of separating the knowledge in wisdom that he is the keeper of into smaller parts of the whole truth, as to preserve the entire body of truth in a riddle, so to speak. So that's interesting, because Osiris was this illuminated being. And so what if within Osiris there was the truth, the whole truth, about who and what all of us are? And so within us, we have to find those truths. And so what is it? It's fragmented within ourselves. And so, and through the practice, practice of going through life and learning wisdom about ourselves and facing the truth within ourselves and that kind of stuff, and the death of the old, meaning we go through these different deaths throughout our lives. We die and become something new over and over and over again in our lives. And so as we go through these lessons or these challenges or different things that we go through in life, we die and we're reborn. And so, but what happens is that each time we find a new truth within ourselves, we become wiser. We get closer and closer to the truth about who we are. And so I just find that super interesting, that when we think about this, there is a whole lot within these stories that tell us something that, maybe, just maybe, Set was not the bad guy here. Maybe it's because everything in the universe happens exactly the way it should. And it's done so that we can face ourselves. So what's going on right now, is it really bad? Is it really bad? Or is it something that's pushing us to look within ourselves so that we can become closer to who we are, the truth of who we are? So there's a lot of things that we could take into consideration here. As I've said in other videos, I'm definitely a skeptic, so I question everything. And I just like to research, and I get excited as I start tying things together and looking at them. And, tomorrow I'm going to find something different. I had to stop researching just to do this portion of the video just because I thought, wait, I got to stop and actually do something as I'm supposed to go live at 6:30 today. So I was researching up until 6:27. So I was finally like, well, we can do more later. So I will definitely be coming on and doing more videos. But these are just some things to think about. And I definitely welcome comments. And if you enjoyed this, I would definitely, if there's somebody that wants to come on and chat about this kind of stuff, that would be great. It'd be a lot of fun. Things I'd like to throw out there to you. My website, of course, most of you know it, is up here on the screen. It's also down in the description of this video. If you would like to go to the website and sign up for my newsletter, I send out cool things about different things and events I'm going to be going on. I'm also launching a school here very shortly. It'll be a subscription that I'll be offering a lot of things that I don't necessarily do on YouTube and Facebook Live that I'll be launching very shortly. And so I'll be announcing that through my newsletter. Also, if you subscribe to my newsletter, it's going to send you back a 78-minute downloadable CD that you can download and listen to. And so I definitely am looking forward to connecting with all of you. And I just really enjoy, speaking with all of you. Also, there is a link to the Lamplight Group's group, and you can definitely join that as well and come and hang out with the Lamplight Group. We're a fun group of people. So much love, everybody, and hope you all are having a wonderful, happy Easter.